Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Back the other day, one of the gentlemen that follow me on YouTube has sent me a sketch. He's got a 4-inch scale traction engine and he wanted a new horn made because he didn't like the one he's brought. So I said I'll try and make one, or cast one in brass, and it's got to be hollow, look. So from that I did a 3D model. So let me just get that. So here's the 3D model. Right, so it's easy enough if I go through how I did it. If you go through that's the result, revolve there. If you go into sketch, you'll see that sketch there and that line there. Well, that bend is a revolved extrude. So that's the sketch. Let's just zoom into there. It's like a bicycle wheel. So you've got the center there. You need a axis. So when you revolve something around, you choose the axis, and that makes that part up to that red line. Then the next one, so if you go into that, you can also edit. If you edit the sketch, there's the circle, there's the axis of the revolve, that you can adjust that, make that all different sizes. I'll just take that out of sketch a minute. And then for the next one, that's that bend up to there, and then you've got the horn bit. So that horn there, you choose another face. You'll see the sketch come up in red there, look, and I'll just edit that so you can see the sketch. That again is a revolved extrude, so you need an axis of rotation. That's the sketch there, and then it's like another push bike wheel. When you revolve it, then you get that. So that is your solid model. Then from there, I did a solid pattern, which I'll get up. Right, this is a solid pattern that will go in the sand. This piece here and this piece here is extensions to allow for when I make a core. So that will locate the core in the sand mold both sides. So then you take out the pattern, and then I'll show you the molds for the core. I'll just get that up. Right, this is the left hand side of the core mold. So all this will be filled in. I've got some material to make the core. So when the core's gone off, you take it out the mold and you're left with the inside shape. This extension here and this extension here, just there, that will locate in those spigots on the solid pattern in the sand mold, which then will leave the thickness of that around for the casting where the brass will flow. And if I get up, I got a pair. This is the pair of mould parts. So left and right side, they'll go together. I haven't mated these in the 3D program, so you can actually see the two halves. So next thing, we're going to slice these, get them ready for printing. Right, so that's the solid pattern ready for printing. That's one of the sides for the core. Ready for printing. And that's the right hand side ready for printing. That's a sliced model, that. What we'll do now is go and take those out to the printer and print those off. That's one half of the core mould printed. So that's the core mould, one half of it. So you'd have the other half put together and you'll fill that up with a mixture to make the core. Good. Right, so that's the two halves of the core mould made. What I'll do is I'll put those together. They go like so. What I'll do is I'll use some rubber bands and then tape it together so there won't be any leaks, and then I've got some stuff that I can mould in there. So that will be the core in there for the horn. I'm just printing the main pattern now, which will be similar to this. That'll be a bit smaller, of course, to allow for the core, and that'll be a little bit smaller to allow for the core, which will be that inside side to there roughly. You'll see later on. This is the solid pattern and then the core mould ready. What I've got to do now is make a bigger box for moulding. Right, so I've made a bigger casting box. So once that'll be put down on there, and then you'll have your pattern in there, half of it. So that's that. Right, the next thing I got to do is make the core. Right, what we're going to do is going to make the core. Right here, I've got some investment powder, plaster. I'm going to mix it pretty dry so it doesn't run everywhere, so I can then fill in the sharp corners first, then tape it together, and I expect to use my finger I get in there, push it all down tight, and then fill it right up to the top. And then we got to let that dry then. I'll just go and get a little bit of water ready in a jug. Right, I've got a little bit in the bottom of the pot. I'm just going to put some gloves on and then I'll mix that pretty dry to a paste. Right, I'm going to add a little bit of water at a time. A bit more. Right, that's a little bit runny for me at the minute. I'll just add a bit more powder. Right, so I've added some more powder. That's lovely. Now what I'll use is a tongue depressor, and I'll get it in the sharp corners down this bottom end here. Right, what I'll do now is I'll just stick those together. Put a bit of tape all the way around. So I've got this tape together. Just use my finger to push what I've got in there down solid. And fill it right up. Right, so that's the core filled. Let that dry off and they can take it out of the mould then. And then we'll be ready for casting. Leave that in there. Right. Right, so it looks like we're ready to mould this. The good thing about doing a 3D model on the computer, you can then print out a one-to-one drawing, which I've done, and I've cut it out of this board and I've pushed the 3D model halfway, so I've got half of it sticking out there. So what I'll do is I'll support that and put me, let's get that one there, and then that will be supported, and then there'll be that part of the box there, and then we'll fill that up with sand. So we got our 3D pattern, and then in there we've got our core. So when we take that out of this mould, if you imagine that that's been cast, we'll then just drop that into the mould, and these ends will line up here and here, and hopefully it'll cast a hollow horn. So I'll get on and start filling that up with sand now. Right, so I'm going to start filling this up with sand. So I'm going to lay that like that. So I've cut a hole. That'll be where the brass will be tipped. So let's start that then. Put plenty in before I start tamping down. Right, that's that side filled up. I'm going to just have a clean up a minute. Right, that's the first half done. I'm just going to dust this with a little bit of powder. That stops the other half from sticking. What I'll use is some cheap talcum powder. Right, now we fill this half up. Right, I'll just have a clean up. Right, now we're ready to split this mould. Got to be careful, I got to come straight up. Come on, oops, lovely. Oh, look at that, that's lovely. Right, so what I got to do on this one, I'll cut the feed in there so the brass would go in there. I'll use a little Stanley knife. So I'm going to go there. And there. Tip that back in my bucket. smooth that off. I use my finger. Push down, you don't want any loose sand going in. Right. And then let's get the other one. This one. Got to do the same there. So I'm going to go there. Put that in my bucket. I hope this works once I cast it. Right, next thing we got to do, take that out, and then we'll put the core in. A little bit of the sharp corner broke out there, but that's alright. Once that's cast, I've got to be filing it and sanding it and polishing it. Right, now we got the core. And the core is going to go in there. There we are. So then that brass will run round there, leave about 1.5 millimeters. Yeah, beautiful. Right, let's get that on then. Make sure I put that on the right way. Well, there we are. So what I'll do is I'll put a board each side of that, clamp it together so I can stand that upright. And then we got our brass feed in there. As you get some boards. Right, so this is all clamped together, boards on each side. That's ready now to cast. So let's get the crucible on. Right, I've got the electric crucible on. Got to let it get up to temperature. Right, we're up to temperature now, we're ready to pour. Let that cool down, see what's happened. Right, so that's clearly cooled down. Let's see if we're successful or not. No. That wasn't successful. It started going. Never mind. That was the third time I tried. It did start trying to go around the core. I think what happens is where this will be so thin, brass goes in. I think this just chills the brass too quick. So if anybody's got any ideas, leave any comments in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel and join me as I build a 2-inch scale Fowler Showmans Traction Engine.